Undoubtedly, the assessments helped us in developing a project design with meaningful strategies and processes. To ensure that the community-centered processes were properly harnessed, and also to ensure that the project did not get influenced by ups and downs or periodic shifts that any project goes through, we had to be committed to a set of non-negotiable principles. We developed guiding principles to anchor the project in right values and principles. The objective was to strive to make structural difference to power relationships, whether it is gender or caste, enhance participation, reduce stigma and discrimination, and mainstream the community. Now it is very essential to understand how the Bagalkot demonstration project defined these principles and translated them to values and practice. It is essential to understand the processes that we followed, the challenges that we faced and overcame to ensure that these principles are binding on all of us who are responsible to implement different facets of the project. To begin with, it is important to understand that these principles are universal and have been articulated in NSEP 3. Gender is very often equated with women. In many programs, development programs I've seen, when we talk about integrating gender, we actually talk about working with women. But we forget that men are equally important. So they need to also go through these processes of reflection, understanding this power dynamics and attempt to make a change. Especially it's important as HIV/AIDS program where we are talking about two people. If we're talking about, let's say, condom use, a woman alone can't use condom. She also needs a man's support to use that condom. That was the basic principle in mind when we designed this link worker program, when we talked about having a male link worker and a female link worker. When link workers started working and we used to have this reflection meeting every month, we found that the link workers were reaching married women. They were in groups like Mahila Sangha or SHGs. And they were reaching young men who were in youth groups, and there were a lot of active youth groups in these villages. They were completely missing young unmarried girls who were either sexually active or would get sexually active sometime later, and married men. It was a very important omission because in our SNA findings and our discussions with sex workers, we found that higher married men go to sex workers, or higher married men have multiple sexual partners. Missing out on the married men group was completely unacceptable in HIV/AIDS prevention program. Similarly, for young girls, we found that they were very, very vulnerable. They were vulnerable to abuse. They would get into marriage or a sexual relationship without much information. So they were very, very vulnerable. We thought it is important that we actually consciously start forming groups, consciously start working with young women and married men, while using the existing platforms that were there for married women and unmarried men or young boys.
So when we were working with the Devadasi sex workers in Bagalkot, and when we talked with them, we realized that we couldn't only focus on their short-term risk for HIV. We had to start looking at a broader set of vulnerability issues. They had issues with their family, they had issues with their children, they had issues with their interactions with the community. We needed to address all of those issues in order for the risk reduction activities to be really effective. We also got a sense that all of this anecdotal information we were collecting had to somehow reflect itself in a design. And so we went through a process of a more formal process of discovery. And we started with a multifaceted situation assessment, where we went to villages and we looked at what were the vulnerabilities of the village. Was it, whether it be because of submergence, and relocation because of the major dam project in the area, or whether it be because they had a lot of migrating workers coming in or going out, whether they were in a drought-prone village. So we wanted to capture the diversity of vulnerability within the district. We wanted to find out what was happening within the villages in terms of risk behavior. What was the type of risk behavior? Was it mostly risk behavior within the community? Was it people going out of the community? Was within the community, were there particular groups that were at greater risk? So we went through a formal discovery process to try to understand better the dimensions of risk and vulnerability and use that to inform the specific elements of our design. It was also important to be able to feed that back to the community at all levels.